All right, here's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be taking this donut and that donut, this grayscale donut, and turning it into a Wayne Thiebaud styled color um, oil pastel drawing. So like we've done before, you're going to take this tracing and trace it on the bottom half of a 9 by 12 piece of pre-sketch paper that you have folded in half. Oil pastel needs a cover sheet. Okay, so when you're not working on it, you should have a dedicated sheet over it, and this provides that for you. So go to the window, go to a light box, and trace that nice and carefully. And I want to let you know something about the Wayne Thiebaud color style, and there's going to be a slideshow on Google Classroom that will kind of show you some of this. But when you have your oil pastel set, it's you kind of think of this general basic concept of almost any lighter tones can be created with your lighter colors. Almost any darker colors can be created with your darker colors. And leave your neutrals kind of for where you might want to have the color be a little more like what you're doing. So if what you're doing is brown and this chocolate is a dark brown, we can put a little bit of dark brown in there, but maybe mix some blue instead of black. So we're going to try to really play with color. One thing that Wayne Thiebaud does also is that he puts lots of blues in his shadows and maybe some violets, maybe just a little bit of black, but mostly lots of color. And he also really has fun using warm colors, the yellows and oranges and pinks and light and also the light blues to act as kind of an outline. It kind of helps give it kind of a fuzz, kind of a softness in the outlining of certain things and in the transition from darker to lighter. So we'll do a little bit of this and a couple reminders on how to use the oil pastels. It's always a good idea to have a piece of scratch paper or paper towel by your side that I need to find. Here's my scratch paper. Okay, now I have to decide, and I have not done this before, this one. Okay, so we're just going to use that basic color style. So let's start with the cake part of the donut. And I want that to have just the littlest bit of the natural tone. So, and again, we're working from a black and white source because I want you to play with color. I don't want you to match color. All right, oil pastel. You can use those little circles, but you don't have to be quite as um, small as you might with colored pencil. Pressing kind of lightly at first. And this is just to kind of um, establish the ground color, the base color. And I can see on my resource, whoop, there it is, that it's getting lighter toward the middle. It's going to get even darker over here. And I'll make it darker with a darker color. I'm not going to press really harder with this undertone. And as you can see, we can kind of cover good. Don't just go like that. Still try to be kind of smooth with the shading. We'll have some kind of painterly strokes later. Now, if you trace it lightly like you should, I've almost kind of erased, or rather gone over those pencil lines. I can just barely see them. All right, and let's see. Let's use a little bit of just a little bit of the darker brown, and we'll use some of the other colors as transition colors. So I know, I'm looking up here, I know there's a little bit of darkness there, a little bit of haze here. And again, it looks rough right now. You can see that it has kind of that roughness, and that will smooth out once we get the kind of our blending tools ready to go. Okay, and I'm just establishing where some of the basic darks are. Just making my best guess And I'm going to do a little bit of this. Then I'll probably go off camera and do a little bit more after I kind of give you the idea of how to do this. So there's a little spot there. There's a little spot there. Those two little dark parts right there, I'm going to wait till the end to do those. Now I'm going to use, what should I use? Let's use this kind of this peach tone. I'm going to press a little harder now. When you press harder with oil pastel, you have to hold it down here farther or they will break. Now, it's kind of blending together that darker brown and that light tan color. I'm just pressing kind of medium, not real hard. And I need to let it stay lighter in here. So I'm not going to do much with this. If you want to, I'm going to clean off my white. You can press right in here with the white. White is a good blending tool. Watch this little dark streak right there. I'm just going to kind of scrabble right over it. See, I kind of softened it. Now I can start to have a little more fun with the color. I'm going to add some pink into this transition. Again, Wayne Thiebaud really plays with color. So between the dark and the light, I'm letting this be kind of a transition color. I could use blues. I'm going to throw a little bit of orange in there, lightly. If I could really crank the orange and really turn it to orange if I wanted to. Looking up here to make sure I don't cover up my light areas. Now, it's way more important to capture where the values of the colors are, not necessarily the exact color, but how dark and light those colors are. I'm cleaning off my yellow over here. Or you can wipe it in a paper towel. This yellow is lighter, so I'm going to use it as really a blending tool. Kind of mix all those together. Now this side isn't real dark. This side's darker, so I may use a slightly darker color over there to get it to blend in. Okay, I'm going to call that good for now. When you're doing your artwork, always wait until you do things around it before you give it that final judgment. Let's see, I'm going to see if my white will make this a little bit whiter. I'm going to push really, ooh, look at that. I pushed really hard right there and held it way down deep. And I really got some of that white to show back up. And try to put it a little bit down here too. Now, oil pastel is something you can blend with your fingers, but don't just go all over the place. It just takes kind of a medium pressure just to soften some edges. Okay, I'm going to use red way back here a little bit because it's a darker tone back there. Just a couple little marks, blend it. All right, now what do we do with that chocolate up here? I'll just do a little part of it right over here. Let's see. And we have to, if something is really white and shiny, you would do want to leave the white of the paper to show through as much as you can. Because even though you can go over it with white, it doesn't always wind up being really, really white. So for now, I'm going to go around those reflections. And again, I want this to still kind of look like a chocolate donut. So I'm going to use some brown in there. Let's see, there's kind of a brown place. Up here, that's the super dark right in there, like it is over here. But this color can be used there too. So I'm going to throw some blue in there, kind of as a blending tool. So you don't want little white specks of paper showing through. So over here would not be finished. Over here is more like the finished quality. So I'm using the blue, this kind of dark blue violet as a blending tool. Now again, I'm going to play with color. I'm going to use some red in there too, just to give it a glow. I can, around the edge of it, I'm going to try to go a little bit of orange. Maybe like a little transition color to the highlights. See a little glow that happened? Let's see, with the reflections, I can put that down here so you can see it better. With those white reflections, any lighter color works. So this reflection isn't really white. I'm going to save my white for some of the parts that look like they're highly reflective. If I want, I can throw some white on top of that to make it a little more white. Looks like there's a darker streak above right here that I missed. So yes, you want to go with where you see the values change, but just kind of go crazy with the color. So put that one here. There's a lighter reflection right there. Now this color, I just let it intentionally bump into the brown. Okay, and that kind of gave it a little fuzz, a little blur, and that's totally cool. Now, there's a reflection back here that's not very dark, or not as light as the rest of them, so I'm going to throw a little orange on there instead of brown. So hopefully you can kind of get a sense of that chocolate donut happening right there. Now, excuse me, the shadow and the background. The shadow, you will see on Wayne Thiebaud's work that his shadows are really bluish. They do have a sense of a shadow that gets a little bit lighter toward the outside, that diffused shadow that we learned about in Art 1. So I'm going to use this blue first. I'm going to let it kind of fade away, get softer out here toward the edge. I'm going to use my lighter blue. I could use a little bit of light green in there too. Again, playing around with color. And now you will notice this a lot in Wayne Thiebaud's work. He takes pinks and oranges and yellows and things like that, and sometimes the light blue, and he'll just throw an outline around it. And this outline kind of bumps into the blue and it hits the white also. So I'm going to throw a little bit of, kind of lightly, a little bit of an orange occasionally. Just maybe back there. It might disappear a little bit. I'm going to use my yellow to kind of blend that orange. That kind of thing can happen in between the shadow and the donut. But a lot of times I'll wait until I finish the shadow before I do that. That was a little yellow just to lighten up that little mark of blue that I put there. Now and again, if you have little white specks, sometimes your finger can kind of smear that a little bit. Actually, I'm going to go a little bit and use that darker blue violet right in at the base of the shadow and let that fade away. Use my finger a little bit to smear the edge of that. Now the background, that's kind of up to you as long as there's good contrast. So I could You will also notice in some of Wayne Thiebaud's artwork, the backgrounds are kind of simple, but there's almost always a color. And I think it's important on a background to usually let the color gradually fade, or let the color blend into another color. So I did a little bit of this. I could do a little bit of, let's go a little bit of yellow right down here. And let the yellow blend into the green. And maybe on the bottom half of that, I could, no, that'll be the same thing. Let's put some orange down here. And I could use blue. I'm going to let the orange kind of fade away because I don't want it to be the exact same as that up there. I can just let the orange fade away into white if I wanted to. I'm not sure if I'm liking this orange. So let's use some of the tan. To get that to blend. And one thing that's happening, these two colors are looking alike. So I'm going to use a little bit of blue to get that little bit of a tiny little cast shadow. Just like that tiny little shadow you might see under your finger when you lay it down. And I'm going to use a little bit of this just to kind of make it not quite so obvious. Oh, what the heck. Let's get some red back there. Let's let the red really take over. Let the red blend into the orange. Now watch this little trick. I'm going to take some pink and I'm going to try to make this pink line both touch the donut and the red outline at the same time, and you can kind of smooth off that kind of that chunky look of the red right back there. So with one stroke, so you just kind of let it cover up that little awkward edge. And let's see, I think I'm going to make it a little darker in the background. Right up there. Let that fade away. And use maybe orange as a blending tool. So there's lots of kind of back and forth. Down here I can use yellow as a blending tool. And again, don't make yours just like mine. You can choose to use slightly different colors. I'll get this finished at some point and put it on the slideshow. Right there is another place to take a color and try to hit both sides at the same time, so you kind of smooth up that line between the donut and the icing on top. There you go. So I hope that gives you an idea how to play around with the color. And check out Wayne Thiebaud's work. And again, I've had students really kind of be afraid to really play around with the color. So go for it, you guys. Go for it.